Joining us now to sort all this out is Curtis Ellis. Curtis Ellis, long resume. You know him very well. He's a regular on the John Fredericks Show. Been with me for years. He is the former executive in the Department of Labor. He's now a senior advisor with America First Policies, the number one political action committee supporting the president's America First agenda. Curtis, great to have you.
Hey, it's great to be here. Always great to be here with you.
Curtis, I was really fired up yesterday because the Wall Street Journal pushing this piece out 8 minutes after the Wall Street opened, 10 minutes after they hit the bell. It was pre-written on Sunday night, saying the stocks dive. It was going to be economic chaos. We were all going to die.
Right. Yeah.
It was already pre-written. By the end of the day, stocks had rebounded, not a peep out of them now.
Yeah, exactly. Stock market opened down like 470 points, which on a 26,000 market is really not much.
Nothing.
By the time 4 o'clock and the closing bell rolled around, stocks were down 66 points, which is nothing. I mean, that's flat.
It's a daily trend.
It's noise. It's static. It's background static, background noise. This is ridiculous. I was ready to jump through the TV and strangle Neil Cavuto yesterday. Neil Cavuto on Fox Business News, on Cavuto in the afternoon on Fox. He's going on, tariffs bad, governments don't pay tariffs, consumers pay tariffs. I can't emphasize that enough. Let me tell you. It's like, dude, this is your theory, which you learned in a book someplace. It has no bearing on reality, okay? Like, get over yourself. Great monologue there, John. They told us when President Trump imposed tariffs in the first place, oh, my gosh, the world's going to end. It's horrible. The economy's over. The stock market's over. We're all going to be walking around barefoot, dressed in rags. Forget about it. Take the gas pipe now. Kill yourself. It's over. And look what happened. And now he's standing up to China again, and they're repeating the same thing. These people learn nothing. They've learned nothing.
Well, because they're tools. They're just tools at Wall Street, Curtis, and they're tools of the investment banking community that makes hundreds of millions of dollars and don't care if an American worker lives or dies. Let's just be honest with each other and stop pussyfooting around. And you saw it in the Journal yesterday. I've been saying it for years. You know what? These are the same people who destroyed our economy, put people out of homes, got their cars repossessed, put them on the street, and then the same taxpayers who they screwed then bailed them out so they could go on junkets to Carmel. You know what? Until we call them out, the same thing is going to happen. Now, let me tell you something. The first round of tariffs, 10%, you're going to pay another 8 cents for your six-pack of Pabst Blue Ribbon beer. That never happened. You know why? We're dealing with a communist government who subsidizes production, Curtis. They subsidize production.
So they they absorb the cost.
They subsidize the cost.
Everything that comes from China, everything that we buy in China before it gets delivered on the port of Long Beach in Southern California, it comes through Hong Kong. It comes through a middleman in Hong Kong. And that middleman in Hong Kong doubles the price. Whatever he pays some communist subsidized factory in Shenzhen or Chongqing or wherever inside China, he then doubles or triples the price before he sells it to Black & Decker or Walmart or whoever else is putting it on the shelves in their store here in America and selling it to you. So there's a guy in Hong Kong who's doubling or tripling the price before he passes it on. He's a middleman, right? He's going to eat it too. He takes that cost. Oh, they just put a 25% tariff on? By the way, they put the 25% tariff on the price paid to the factory in Chongqing, right? So this guy's tripled the price before he passes it on to the American buyer. He's got plenty of headroom there to absorb some of that cost, and he's still making out like a bandit. We're getting hosed, and he's making a fortune in Hong Kong. They ought to put a 75% tariff or a 300% tariff on this crap coming from China.
And it would make no difference because simply the whole Chinese chain, they'd make less money, or the government would have to continue to subsidize. This is the other thing, Curtis. Everybody looks at this, the Wall Street Journal and Fox News and Cavuto and all these naysayers about the fear of tariffs, they all, and the Koch brothers, all of them, they look at this and they look at it in a static environment. Say, oh my God, we're going to now have to pay more for cheap goods produced with cheap labor of people earning 2 cents a day in a rice ball in China. Oh my God, consumer prices are going to go up. Here's what they fail to see. As prices go up for goods, U.S. manufacturers, small businesses, and others now see a window to compete. They now understand, okay, I can now make a shoe. I can make an LED light. I can make a conductor. I can produce steel or aluminum. I can make an air filter for a car. I can make it, pay a worker a wage, and now I can compete. I can make a better product and sell it to Americans. I couldn't before because the Chi-Coms were subsidizing the brakes or the air filter, whatever they do, dumping it in the U.S. at the port of Long Beach, and I couldn't compete with that. Now I can compete, so I can make it better, faster, quicker, but I'm going to have to pay a living wage. That's what they don't see. We don't live in a static economy.
Many, many things they don't see because they're earning too much money to not see it, right?
Because they do nothing.
Everybody says the market needs a deal. We have to make a deal with China. The stock market needs. That's a load of crap. They need to make a deal. They say we need to make a deal with China because they're making a fortune selling investments in China. They're making a fortune. They need to make a deal because they want to keep making money. Here's the other thing. This whole thing about cheap consumer prices, you're exactly right. When Americans start making this start again, because we used to do it, folks. I'm old enough to remember when we used to make the stuff we bought in the stores. And in those days, and when we go back to those days and start making the stuff that we buy, everybody had more money in their pocket, right? And if we raise incomes, or I shouldn't say if, because we're in the process of doing it right now with President Donald J. Trump, when we raise the incomes for Americans, we're all better off. I was with Bob Lighthizer, the U.S. trade negotiator, and he said, the goal is not the cheapest T-shirt. The goal is the best quality of life for people. That's the goal of our trade policy, raising the quality of life, the best quality of life for Americans. That's the goal here. I got a question here's a question and a riddle for your audience. Mm-hmm. Who is paying more for their clothes? The person who earns $70,000 a year and pays $25 for a shirt, or the welfare recipient who buys a T-shirt for 99 cents? It's that person.
Right.
It's the welfare recipient who's paying more for their clothes because what they're paying for their clothing is a larger fraction of their income.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So we need to raise the incomes of Americans. And then we can afford to pay 7 cents more for our six-pack of Pabst Blue Ribbon because we're now earning $70,000 a year working in the aluminum smelter. Right? Instead of living on food stamps and having to sell our food stamps at a 50% discount to the cheating bodega store who will give us cash to buy the Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Exactly. I mean, it's outrageous. And I tell you what, I'm going to get you your own show on the John Fredericks Radio Network. I got to talk to you today about it because when you look at this trade thing with China, Curtis, is going to go on. And
it's going to go on.
There's a handful of people, and I'm going to tell my audience this. And we've been railing on it for 8 years since I've been. This is why I have a radio show. We've been railing on this crap for 8 years. All these liars out there on Wall Street, but nobody else will fight back because everybody else is in the pocket of Wall Street because their money comes from cheap labor and cheap goods and cheap consumer products so that they can drive bigger profits for their companies and make bigger bonuses. They produce nothing, they manufacture nothing, they grow nothing, they accomplish nothing but move around money and screw you. And so this has been going on and on and on, and it's you and I and it's a handful of other people in the country who have got the the onions to stand up to this. I'm telling you, everybody's afraid. This whole tariff thing. Now, explain what the president did, Curtis Ellis, and we're with Curtis Ellis. He is the senior policy advisor for America First Policies, former executive at Department of Labor. He was also with the Trump campaign from the beginning in communications and on the transition team. Explain what Trump did Sunday night and what he's going to do on Friday by finally standing up to the lying, cheating, Chinese half-baked negotiators.
Well, that's what he did. He stood up to the lying, cheating, half-baked Chinese negotiators. Going back to November 30th in Buenos Aires, he met with the Chinese president, Chinese dictator, Xi Jinping, and they said, okay, we're going to discuss, we're going to have talks, negotiations to lift the tariffs that are in place and for you guys to stop subsidizing, stop cheating, stop stealing, and the tariffs back at that time, back in November, 10%, were scheduled to go up to 25% on January 1st. And he said, we will postpone that for 90 days while we negotiate. Mm-hmm. Okay? So they were then supposed to go up to 25% on March 1st. Mm-hmm. That would be 90 days from mm-hmm. November 30th when they announced the 90-day suspension. Mm-hmm. The talks started, and come March 1st, they said, well, the talks are going so well, we will postpone bringing them up to 25% again. Okay? We'll postpone that because we're making good progress on the talks. As of this weekend, he said what happened was the Chinese, what looked like good progress, well, over the weekend, the Chinese started to renege on the deal. They reverted to form. They did what they've been doing for the last 30 years, the last 47 years, mm-hmm. promising one thing, delivering nothing.
Right.
Saying they're going to do this, not doing it. They said they'd reached agreement on a whole lot of fronts in these talks. Well, over the weekend, they said, well, actually, the way we see it, it's kind of different. And the president said, enough already. Mm-hmm. We've been jerked around for 30 years. You've been jerking me around for 90, 120 days. Nuh-uh, you got the wrong customer here, friend. 25% on 12:01. 1 minute past midnight Friday morning, 25%. And by the way, we're going to find another $300 billion worth of goods, and we're going to slap a tariff on that, too. Put that in your rice bowl. Eat that with your chopsticks, okay?
First president that has done this since Richard Nixon visited China in 1972, the first one to stand up to them. That is why it's making a difference. And he is going to follow through on these tariffs. And Wall Street Journal and the other people in Lower Manhattan and Goldman Sachs are not going to scare him into not doing it because that's what they want to do. And so we're going to put the tariffs on, and it is going to create more U.S. jobs. I was saying earlier, Curtis, even look at an industry that you and I happen to be somewhat familiar with is the LED lighting industry, right?
Right.
So everybody needs LED lights, and so the Chinese objective, subsidize production, dump it in the U.S. It's a growth industry. Everybody's going from fluorescent to LED, make it cheaper, destroy all the LED companies in the United States, corner the market, and then do whatever you want, right? I mean, that's been their goal with everything.
Exactly, yeah. The LED is a perfect example.
Perfect.
This is an industry of the future. It's actually of the present. The future is now. LED lights are replacing light bulbs. Not so much in your home, the little thing you screw in, but any display signs you see little things light up on your dashboard, everywhere else. These are LEDs. Even headlights are LEDs now. They're not, and China wants to corner the market. Right. They want to be the people who make them,
right.
The place where they're made for the entire world.
Right.
And they do this by subsidizing, making it impossible for anyone else to compete.
Right.
And how do they do that? Where do they get the money to do that? Every time you buy something at Walmart, every time people don't know that most of the drugs you buy, if you buy vitamin C, if you buy penicillin, it's made in China. That's money. We no longer make that stuff. And we're sending them the money that they are using now to corner these key industries, corner the market, mm-hmm. and undermine us. It's insane.
And that's why they're freaking out now, because all the cash is going from us to them, which is propping up their false fake economy, which they go around and saying is growing at 6%. You ask anybody that's there, they're like, no, it's about 1%, right? So we've been propping their economy up. And here's the thing. We can make LED lighting. We can make penicillin. We can make aluminum. We can make steel. We can manufacture these things. We can make shoes and T-shirts. We can make all this with good paying American jobs and make it better, but we have to be able to compete on a level playing field. And so that's what these tariffs are going to do. They're going to bring jobs back. They're going to continue to bring manufacturing back. And, the Chinese sat there, negotiated in bad faith. But you hit it on the head. This is what they've been doing, Curtis, since 1972. They lie, they cheat, they steal, and they stall. It's like when Obama went to them for the Paris Peace Accords, and they said, well, right now, we're building a coal plant a month with no filters on it. Those are too expensive. But I tell you what, in 2050, then we'll talk about how we can become a contributor to world peace and green systems or whatever they said. 2050, right?
And what they did this time is, I'm convinced of this, is they have been building up, and they've been building up expectations that there's going to be a deal, right? There's going to be a deal. And you have people like Obama and John Kerry and folks like that. If they were in charge, they would have been so juiced that we're going to have a deal and we're going to have like a big signing ceremony and there's going to be a great buffet afterwards and everybody's going to be patting us on the back and telling us how wonderful we are. We got to go through with this. So then when the Chinese pull the rug out from under them, they say, oh, well, we'll paper over the difference. We can't deflate the expectations now. Everybody's like so psyched that we're going to have a deal. We can't let them down. Let's go ahead and do it anyway. Yeah, well, Donald Trump is different. He doesn't need their approval. He doesn't need the accolades of a phony deal. He knows what's good and what's bad and what's good for our country. And he says, I don't care what these people think. I don't care what Wall Street thinks. I don't care what the Kennedy School of Government poobahs say. They're screwing us, and I'm not going to put up with it.
The Kennedy School of Government. He doesn't really care about that, but it looks like they canceled the buffet then, right?
Yeah, right. They can eat their buffet. I've got a buffet at Mar-a-Lago, okay? I have a really nice buffet. And I can get a taco bowl at the cafe in Trump Tower, okay?
And I love how he always says, my good friend, President Z.
Right.
That's the best. We have a great relationship.
So typical New York negotiating. My good friend. And then when the doors close, they're at each other with knives.
It's like
hatchets.
My good friend, President Z. But look, he stood up to them. The tariffs are going into place on Friday, and they negotiated in bad faith. And they thought, just like you said, they thought they could roll them. We'd paper over the difference so we can run around the Rose Garden saying we had a deal and he could get the approval of the Wall Street Journal and Goldman Sachs.
This is the same thing. Look, this is the same thing President Trump did when he was candidate Trump and came down the escalator. He's been exposing the falsehoods and the lies and the mendacity. Before Trump came along, there was this a gentleman's agreement between the media and the politicians. The reporters knew that what these politicians were saying, reading off their talking point memos, was all BS. They didn't believe any of it, but they acted like it was true. And they read it out, and it's like, oh, that's a very serious candidate there, and he's just talking about this and that. And it's all bunk. It's all bunk. And again, President Trump does it. The Chinese negotiating in bad faith, pretending they're going along with something. I'm not going to put up with that, is what he said. I'm not going to put up with that. I'm calling BS on the whole thing.
Curtis, we're out of time. Calling BS on the whole thing. Great title. John Fredericks Radio Network. Curtis Ellis, got to get you your own show on the John Fredericks Radio Network and John Fredericks Radio app. Curtis, thanks for being with us, man. I really appreciate it.